This is not the Father Mitch Pacwa that we grew up with. From Mother Angelica, she would not be very happy and look no further than Raymond running around on Fox News trying to be the right-wing hero, the face of EWTN, bad-mouthing our Pope on secular news channels. You know that they went down the wrong road. And there, I said it.
Yeah.
Creating a discourse of suspicion.
Yes, the bishops are culpable. And there are many false mystics out there, Luisa Picaretta, and warnings have been given about her writings. They're not good. People who read them get somewhat confused, and I put it down to the lack of catechesis, the lack of spiritual direction, the lack of proper disposition.
So what is going on with EWTN? That is the question. How you doing?
Jonathan, we're recording, love. You're killing me.
So what is going on with EWTN? We have Father Mitch Pacwa and his guest condemning, bad-mouthing a approved mystic of the church who has received the title Servant of God, who Saint Hannibal de Francia himself approved her books and also lived according to her revelations from Jesus and Mary, and not to mention dozens of bishops who have supported her and her cause and have given their seals of approval to her work. How did this happen? Is this the EWTN that we grew up with? Martha, how can we make sense of this? I know earlier you were a little bit angry about the situation. So in a tempered way, how do we make sense of EWTN taking a stand against the magisterium of the Roman Catholic Church?
So I have cooled off since we last communicated.
Good.
And so upon reflecting, and I wanted to share this because this is coming from a personal eye, to hear this podcast play out on such a network. EWTN is very dear to many people. To see this conversation take place and for the entertainment of this conversation to even be allowed, it really hit a frustrating nerve for me because there is so much contradiction in this conversation. What is being shared and the false, unfair statements that are being directed towards Luisa, it's unjust because I sit back and I listen to this and it hurts. How can you contradict the Magisterium, the position the Magisterium has on Luisa and her writings? You cannot say that you are for the church, but make statements that contradict the church. It doesn't work that way.
You know what I think? I think, there's a lot of credentialed academics who feel that the magisteriums has made mistakes. I think a lot of them feel that the church has made mistakes with St. Faustina, and a lot of people feel that the magisterium has made a mistake with Louisa, perhaps. However, if you're going to take a stand against the magisterium, if you're going to say St. Hannibal de Francia is wrong, if you're going to say dozens of bishops is wrong, that should be done in a little bit more of a transparent way. That's when I say, I'm not as credentialed as the professor who strongly disagrees with the Roman Catholic Church, but I think to go on EWTN and confuse the dear old ladies and not make a distinction that you are now disagreeing with saints and bishops and going out on your own opinions. This is not the Father Mitch Pacwa that we grew up with, especially when you consider Mother Angelica, one of her own nuns has started a divine will order, Mother Gabrielle, which branches off directly from Mother Angelica. She would not be very happy with what Father Mitch Pacwa is a part of. But I'm not sure if it's his fault. I'm not sure, he's in his late 70s now. It looks like he's missing his fastball. Maybe there's a little Joe Biden thing going on there. He's not realizing what he's doing. However, this is a very, very, very messy situation.
It's concerning. It doesn't
But is
waver.
it really unexpected? This is really unexpected. You mentioned EWTN, but you know what? I think a lot of people know that this is not the EWTN of the 90s, of the 80s.
No.
No one's watching anymore. There's a reason why no one's watching anymore.
It is concerning. Does it surprise me? No, it doesn't. We have seen these curveballs being thrown at Luisa regardless of the countless of times, the countless proof there is out there from the Holy See, from the Vatican, that her writings are approved. There is no heretical, erroneous errors in her teachings and the doctrine of Luisa. So am I surprised? No. My heart goes to those that might be on the cusp of, do I want to learn about Luisa? Do I want to learn about the divine will? And then they hear this from somebody that is educated, that is a professional, that is, has these initials behind his name to say these things. That could really hurt a lot of people from knowing who Luisa is and from entering into this gift. That's where my heart goes. That's where my frustration. It doesn't move me.
Hey, I understand.
I'm in the
I
foundation.
understand.
I have the
get it.
concrete.
I
It's
understand
the
that. Yeah, but
vulnerable people that I am mad for. That's
don't-
where my
hey,
heart goes.
all right, just simmer down, okay? God's going to take care of people, and God's going to
True.
bring the people to the divine will that he wants to bring to the divine will. Louisa and Saint Hannibal are alive, and they are working in heaven to fulfill God's will. That's going to be okay. People who are entitled to their opinions and entitled to express their disagreements
But
with the
there's no
church.
opinion here. It's
No,
coming
no, no,
off
no, no, no. I
as if
think
there's authority. And that's it. There's
they
nowhere on there saying my
obviously,
opinion.
obviously, Father Pacwa and this professor, they strongly disagree with Saint Hannibal and what the church has approved. They are disagreeing with the Magisterium, and they're free to do that. However, I do think they should be very transparent that this servant of God, which is undergoing the canonization process, we think she's a fraud. So if you're going to go that far and make that your opinion, they should be more transparent about that.
Exactly. And I don't see that transparency. There's no
Well,
need to
every
do
time
that.
a priest talks, he does speak for the church. That's why it's very important for them to,
Yes, and that's why
uh,
this is
and that's why
even
they
more
answer the
profound.
bishop. Yeah, well, people misspeak. This is an obvious mistake. I do not think EWTN looks good in all this. I do not think Father Pacwa looks good in all this.
No.
And I think that is really what you've come to expect from a lot of religious media. And EWTN, sadly, is one of the media channels that you kind of just expect that. People's own opinions who are boldly disagreeing with the magisterium and not even telling the people when they do so.
And being so public about it, you have now with the internet and with artificial intelligence, it's just, you can instantly and immediately connect with people. There's so much division happening because of the lack of prudence and because of the lack of adherence of obedience to the magisterium.
A lot of books to be sold, a lot of egos in this business, and it's a lot of noise. But it's a little bit sad when you see Father Mitch, who we all grew up with, who was young, vibrant, and sharp, just to see him tired and making mistakes. It's a very sad thing to see. And Mother Angelica in heaven is not happy with what has been done. Yeah, and we're not going to get into all the nitty-gritty details of all the misfacts and the mistakes that were made on that program. No. If you're interested in all those things, you can see Father Iannuzzi's most recent radio program where he lists that systematically one by one if you're interested in all of the mistruths. We're just here to opine that a great injustice has been done to not only Luisa, servant of God, Luisa Picaretta, who's going through the canonization process, but also Saint Hannibal, also the dozens of bishops who have supported her, to a religious order who's living and dedicating to spirituality, to the tens and thousands of followers of the Catholic Church. Why are we mistreated so? Why are saints mistreated so? I mean, Luisa was persecuted her whole life, and now she's persecuted by EWTN 100 years later. It's not fair, and it's dumb.
A Catholic television network, P5, invited a layperson to comment on the status of the writings of the servant of God, Luisa Picaretta, misinterpreted and contradicted the magisterium of the Catholic Church in her position on Luisa's writings.